Welcome to Greg Gabriel Talks Bears. My name is Aldo Gandia. And Greg, how are you today on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon?
Hey, nice day outside. Too bad I can't go out. I'm in quarantine again.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. You got another procedure coming?
I got a little procedure tomorrow, so I had to get COVID tested on Sunday, and now I'm in lockdown. I don't even know if I'm supposed to go out and get the mail.
Yeah, well, I think you can, but wear a mask, I guess.
Who are you going to see if I go out and get the mail? But
somebody might bump into you.
I got my dog here with me. That's the only one.
There you go. By the way, did you see the news that there was a gorilla at some zoo somewhere who tested positive for COVID? Now, how do they test for that? How do they know to test for that? This is bizarre.
Who the hell's got the balls to test a gorilla?
That, my friend.
I mean, really. What do you got? You got to put him out.
I would think so.
I mean, you're going to stick a swab down his throat or up his nose? He's going to eat your ass before that happens.
That is a good point. I didn't even think about that, but you're absolutely right.
That's the first thing I thought of.
All right. I want to, what was the first thing you thought of when it was obvious to you that the Chicago Bears were going to lose against the New Orleans Saints in the wild card weekend opener and that they were going to lose in an unpleasant manner?
That's hard to say. I mean, I was disappointed by the effort in the second half. I think, but that game, go back to the drop touchdown pass. And that was a perfectly thrown ball. In fact, you got just about back-to-back plays where, people bitch about Mitch's deep accuracy. You had back-to-back plays there where he was right on the money with the deep ball. And then there was another one in the second half where he threw a deep ball down the left side where he was right on the money. It got broken up.
Right.
So the accuracy was there. But I think if something took the wind out of their sails, that was it. And then only getting 3 points after the turnover, you got to get 7. I tweeted something and I deleted it. Excuse me. My asthma's acting up too, so I may cough a few times on this show.
You're forgiven.
The penalty to Komet, I tweeted out, he should be fined. Well, from what people tell me now, he didn't do anything. Nobody knows why the flag was thrown. But some of the other penalties they had were just dumb penalties. And just goes along with the way this season did. You had some hopes at the end of the season because they were playing good, but they did not play good against Green Bay. They did not play good against New Orleans. Two of the best teams, probably the two best teams in the NFC, probably the two teams that'll meet for the NFC Championship to go to the Super Bowl. So they drew and they were the lowest seed, so they had to play one of those teams. But
right.
It's on to next year. A lot of people in the media, a lot of fans looking for heads. It's Tuesday now, 2:30. Nothing's happened. And based on my experience, I don't think anything's going to happen. Now, as I said to you off the air, that doesn't mean there's not going to be changes to the coaching staff on one side of the ball, both sides of the ball. I mean, that's up to the powers that be. But I think now that we've, almost 48 hours since the game ended and nothing's happened, at this point, I'd be surprised. I think they're almost entering the musical chairs situation with coaches and GMs. It's getting, late now, and there's a lot of GM openings. There's a lot of head coach openings. and you got to start that process all over again. I don't think that's good for a franchise to do that every 3 years. I think you need some continuity. Obviously, you want better from Ryan Pace. You want better from Matt Nagy. But again, I think, and having worked there for a long time, that being that nothing's happened now, nothing's going to happen. Good. I mean, we all could be surprised.
Right.
That's just my experience.
So the fact that Pace and Nagy have still not had their end of the year press conference, which they usually do on Monday or Tuesday,
right?
The season over. What does that tell you?
That doesn't tell me anything. I think that part of that is the situation that they're in. In fact, there's some rules within the league, and I don't know if they've changed now with the fact that the season's over.
Mm-hmm.
But Mondays and Tuesdays, all the facilities around the league are supposed to be closed.
Right.
That goes back. So how are you going to have the two of them get together to have a year-end meeting,
mm-hmm.
With the media on a day when, unless it's totally virtual, and then you'd have, Ryan in one place and Matt in another place, doing that, I just don't see that. Maybe it happens tomorrow, maybe it happens the next day. They were in the facility yesterday, but that was pack your bags day as far as the players. And now the players, unless they're rehabbing, they're not going to be in there, for a while.
The backlash that Pace, Nagy, and George McCaskey and Ted Phillips would get if there is not a meeting this week to tell people, this is how we saw the 2020 season go, offer up their excuses, and then discuss what preliminarily their plans are and what they're going to look like. The official bullshit that they normally do. If they don't do that this week, the backlash, in my opinion, is going to be so severe. It would be a black eye to the organization.
Well, I think it's going to happen, Aldo.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know when.
Yeah.
And again, part of it is you got league protocol with when you could be in the facility. And today you can't. So, when is that going to happen? So could be tomorrow, could be Thursday. If it's tomorrow, I guess I won't hear it. I'll be in La La Land for a little while.
I would be there with you. Andrew in the chat room says that maybe Ryan Pace might have been scouting that college football playoff game last night.
No. You're going to get the tape for that, and there's only a handful. This has gone on all season. Only a handful of scouts been allowed at any game, and each conference had different rules.
Mm-hmm.
And with the SEC, you only could go to your scout could go to, like a friend of mine works for an NFC team, doesn't live far from the University of Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like within a couple-hour drive, and he could go to one Alabama home game, and that's it. By league rule. So, you're going to get the tape of the game. You saw the TV. They probably already got the tape of the game. So you study the tape, and the tape, there's no difference. When you're at a game scouting live, you only can watch one player at one time, and there's 22 players. It's not like you can run the play back and forth,
right?
So you're better off watching it on tape anyway.
Mm-hmm.
The thing, though, that we're getting off track here, but it's important. This draft, not just for the Bears, but every team in the league, is going to be the most difficult. I thought last year was hard because you had only a handful of pro days after the combine.
Mm-hmm.
And so you were guessing on a lot of stuff then, but you got the medical. You might not even have a combine right now. And as far as the Senior Bowl, I was talking to an evaluator yesterday, and teams can only send a couple guys there, and there's packages. The Senior Bowl is losing a ton of money because, number one, they can't play in front of fans. They get money from the NFL to run this game, but there's ways they have of making money during the course of the week. That's totally off limits. And so they're selling packages to the teams on what access you can have and what you can't have.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know exactly what those packages are, but that's what's going on. And my question, the conversation I had with this one guy was, why are they even having the game? Now, just think about it, from this, and, from the looking at it from the pandemic point of view, you're bringing in over 100 players from all over the country. On top of that, a couple guys, 2 people from 32 teams, that's another 64 on the high end. Some teams might not send anybody. So, roughly you got 160 people, 170 people being brought together from all parts of the country. That's a freaking time bomb right now. And the Senior Bowl's got to obviously test all these people when they get there. And what happens if a couple of them turn up positive? Now you've got contact tracing with all these other players. I just think that, excuse me, and no, I don't have COVID. I got tested on Sunday. And I got the results yesterday. So I just think that I get it. I know what Jim Nagy's trying to do. I just don't think. I think it's ill-timed. I think it's from a health standpoint, it's not good. I know. I've read that there's a number of clubs that turn down the opportunity to coach. For the same reason.
Yeah,
they don't want their people involved in that. And it's just. But now going forward into the scouting, if you have no combine, they might have some regional things, and it's more about the medical. The fans like to think it's about running the 40 and all that other thing. No, the whole purpose of the combine to begin with, the reason it started, was to get the medical. It was a very inexpensive way to get medicals on 335, 340 players versus having players have to go all over the country to different clubs. So you bring them in all together, and then the benefit of that was we got them together, so let's work them out too.
Yeah, I've gone the last 3 years, and that Monday morning where they paraded every single player out in front of an auditorium filled.
Oh, you're talking the height and weight at the
the Monday morning.
I guarantee you that's going to happen in private if they have that.
Oh yeah.
You're not going to have anybody there. But I'm just talking the combine too. If you don't have a combine, well, they're going to set up some way. They're having meetings, and they might even be going on now. They're supposed to happen this week and next week. Figure out exactly what they're going to do, because they got to get medicals on these kids. You're not going to draft a kid without a medical. And then it's just the whole thing is going to be so risky as far as you got potential bust on every pick you make because you don't have the information you normally have. And to me, that's as an evaluator, that's scary. I want books on every guy.
Yeah, right.
So if I make a mistake, it's my own damn fault.
I'll give you for instance, Jamie Newman, who last year in 2019 had a pretty good season over at Wake Forest. He transferred over to Georgia. People were hoping to see him play with Georgia against SEC competition.
And then he opts out.
He decided to opt out. And so there's no tape of him. Nobody has seen or talked to him in 12 months.
He's supposed to play in the Senior Bowl.
Right. So we'll see if he does and what happens. But like you said, there's just not enough information to say, yeah, he's worthy of a late first round or second round pick or even a third round pick. It's a real gamble.
Oh, yeah. And the same thing with the North Dakota State quarterback.
Trey.
Okay, he really starts one full season at North Dakota State at excuse me, the FCS level, and he only plays one game this year. Doesn't play that well. They win the game, but they didn't blow him out or anything. And it's not like he put out these astronomical numbers. He was average.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he's supposed to play in the Senior Bowl too. But are you going to take him off of 1 week of practice at the Senior Bowl in one game this year? Now, and look at the people who say, well, Mitch Trubisky only started 1 year, and he started 1 year at the Power 5 level. This guy starts 1 year at the FCS level and then misses a year. To me, that's got risk written all over it.
Yeah.
And, I'm almost glad I'm not, the guy pulling the trigger on some of these picks now. Your career can get defined on some of this stuff through no fault of your own.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be interesting.
It's going to be fascinating. Hey, I want to ask you a few questions about the game on Sunday against the Saints, and then we'll get back.
What game? What game? What are you referring to? Was there a game?
The game that we've been desperately trying to forget.
I forgot about it.
But I gotta ask you this: the first half, the Bears are in this game. Their defense played well enough to be really proud of the fact that this team could potentially pull off an upset. I've got highlights going up of their third down success in the first half. They forced Drew Brees out of the pocket. He threw incompletions on pivotal plays.
He did not want to take a hit. If you noted that, he was doing everything he could to avoid getting hit. And why? Because you can't tell me that he's all healed from 5 fractured ribs and a collapsed lung.
Right.
So he doesn't want to get hit.
And then on the other hand, you had the Bears on third down. They were a flop. They were 1 for 10 the entire game on third downs plays. And the only one they converted was the last drive of the game where they had 1 third down. So they were 0 for 9 at one point.
Right. I'll tell you one thing that bothered me is they got away from what they had been doing successfully the 4 weeks before.
Yep.
The rollouts, the boots, that type of thing. They weren't doing it. And why? And that's a question that, you want to ask at this year-end press conference, whenever it's going to be. And maybe there's not going to be one because maybe they're getting fired or, we don't know the answer to that.
That's right.
I'm just, again, I'm just thinking if it ain't done by now, it's not getting done.
Yeah.
So
many people in the chat. We've got dozens and dozens. Thank you all for being here for the live portion of this. And again, this show will be on podcast, audio podcast on our Bears Barroom Radio Network, and the video version will be housed here on YouTube. But a lot of people in the chat room are wondering what happened with the play calling. Did Jim Nagy wrestle the play calling away?
Matt Nagy, you mean? Jim Nagy runs the Senior Bowl.
I'm sorry, that's right. My good friend Jim Nagy had nothing to do with it, guys. Matt Nagy, not my good friend. Did he wrestle the playbook away from Bill Lazor?
Lazor, I don't know. I mean, that's a good question that none of us have the answer to. It didn't, when they had the camera on him, it didn't look like he was the guy calling the plays.
Right.
As we talked about this last week, I don't care who's calling the plays. All the offensive coaches are involved in putting that game plan together.
Right.
They each got certain areas that they're responsible for and that they have to report on to Coach Nagy and to Coach Lazor as far as, okay, I think we can do this. The line coach is saying, and he's the run game coordinator. I think we can do this in the run game. We got to stay away from this part. So those are the types of things that happen when putting a game together. And they, played them in the middle of the year. You got to go back to that game too a little bit, see what you did do and what you couldn't do. But, all told, I got to be honest, I wasn't totally happy with it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, people want to put the blame on Mitchell. But Mitchell doesn't drop the passes. Mitchell doesn't get a costly penalty. There's a bunch of that stuff. So, it's, you can put it on the coaching staff. You can put it, the offensive line, they played good that last quarter of the season, but reality is that's a patchwork offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's not the offense. Some of those guys are going to be the starters next year, but not all of them. And, so, and they're playing one of the best teams in the NFC. And, I think once I think the Bears, when they didn't score, they had the drop pass and then only got 3 after the, and by the way, I thought, that one interception that got overturned, I think that was an interception. The other one wasn't an interception. It was a fumble recovery. I think the officiating was questionable, but do you want to say that was one of the reasons the Bears lost? Absolutely not. Mm-hmm. Bears lost because the Bears lost. They didn't play as good as the Saints.
Yeah. You mentioned penalties, and I looked this up. After the Titans game, the Bears were 31st out of 32 in terms of penalties, meaning that they were the second most penalized team in the NFL. And then during the bye, Nagy said that they had a heart-to-heart with all the players and said, you got to be more disciplined. And they improved their discipline on penalties. And they were at the end of the season, they had gone from 32 to 15. So they improved dramatically. But in this playoff game against the Saints, they had 9 penalties, which is an awful lot of penalties. What do you think about the discipline or lack of discipline that is going on with the team?
Well, that's what it is. It's lack of discipline, especially the thing with Anthony Miller. And, it's the same guy who Wims goes after in the regular season game when he got suspended for a week for, punching the guy. You're a pro. And when it's one thing making mental mistakes in the regular season. When you get into the playoffs, you have to have your A game. You've got to be on. You can't make a stupid mistake. Okay. And some of those penalties were stupid mistakes.
Mm-hmm. Kelly Jordan in the chat room says that Nagy should have made a point that you will be held accountable, and Wims, for instance, should have been cut after that first Saints game when he threw that punch. And that's a great point, and one that Mitch Trubisky alluded to after the game. He said that the culture on this team allowed permissive behavior, and I'm paraphrasing a bit, but it looked like it was a shot at Matt Nagy because Javon Wims was still on this roster. Perhaps he should have been dropped in November when he had that fight with the Saints and maybe pick up a veteran wide receiver.
Well, who's out there? Veteran wide receiver. And sorry for interrupting you.
No,
there's nobody out there.
Better than Wims, baby.
Well, the guy, I'll say this. The guy's got talent. Now, he got open deep. He drops the ball. The play before that, or a couple plays before that, he gets open deep and makes a great catch. Okay, and then he was open deep on the other. In fact, all 3 deep balls were to him. The other one got broken up. But he was open. And he's a talented guy. When you got a guy with talent, it's not like you're giving he's a cat with 9 lives, but you want to make him plays for you, not make him plays for the Green Bay Packers or wherever's going to pick him up, because somebody's going to pick him up. And then you're going to get blamed for letting them go.
Yeah.
You got to turn it into a teaching experience and have them learn. But if they keep striking out, like, Anthony Miller has a reputation of being a little bit of an airhead, I guess, for lack of a better phrase. They mentioned it on a telecast earlier in the year. Who'd win the award for most being late for practice or meetings the most? Anthony Miller. Now that's a thing where you got to keep finding a guy and you got to keep jumping the fine.
Mm-hmm.
And they never publicize who gets fined and who doesn't get fined. Generally, that money goes to charity at the end of the year, and the players vote on, there's hundreds of thousands of dollars, trust me, in that kitty by the end of the year. Because there's a lot of little things that you don't even know about the guys are getting signed for. And then, the players vote on where that money goes as far as charities, etc. But you got to up the ante when a guy keeps making stupid mistakes. Now, Miller, my thinking is, okay, he's going into his 4th year next year. That's the last year of his rookie contract. That's a talented guy. And you can't say that he didn't play good football, except for that dumb play he made Sunday, the last quarter of the season, because he did. But because of his history, he's going to get one more shot at getting another contract. And that's going to be what he does next year. And if he keeps making those same mistakes, he won't get that second contract. That next contract is going to be with somebody else.
Yeah. I don't know, Greg. To me, I've seen enough. It is time to admit you made a mistake. And that's one of the things as a general manager that you have to do is recognize the mistakes that you've made and correct them as quickly as possible. I've seen enough. Bob Phelan has a question for you. It's a good one. Bobby Bombs, as he's known, he says that as a scout, as someone who has led a scouting organization, are there any conversations with your general manager about potentially drafting a quarterback every year, like Ryan Pace said he was going to do when he first joined the Bears, but has not done?
Well, first of all, you line it up two ways. When you're putting your board together and you start your meetings, and I'll go back to last week when we talked. You got meetings in December, meetings in February, final meetings in April. Really, and you're not looking at 1 through 255 when you're meeting in December. Excuse me. And February, because you're doing it by position. Okay, you're okay. You do the quarterbacks. Let's say you start with the quarterbacks. This guy's your top guy. This is his grade. It's your number 2 guy. This is his grade. It's your number 3 guy. This is his grade. Now you got the grade on it, but you don't know when you're stacking them by position. You don't know where he's going to fall on the big board, best to worst board. Right. When you got all the players together, you're putting the grade on. Okay, then your final part is taking all the positions, and you're going to have, there's going to be guys you don't want. So you're going to eliminate those, from that final board, and then putting that final board together, best to worst. And then you're going to prioritize. And let's say you've got 6 guys. When you're in the premium, the higher you go, the lower the number of players that have the same grade. Okay, because those are the elite grades. Right. But let's say you got 4 players with the same grade in that elite category. Now you've got to rank those regardless of the position. Who do you want first? Who do you want second? Who do you want third? Who do you want fourth? Prioritize, regardless of the position. Now, be that.
Excuse me for interrupting, but if you have a higher need at one position and you got one of those, that position is represented by one of those 4 players, wouldn't you automatically make that person first?
Yeah, you can, but they got the same grade, so that can come in. Hey, we got to get a quarterback. These are our 6, 7 grades, and we got 1 quarterback, 1 running back, 1 defensive tackle, 1 linebacker. I'm just, throwing a dart at the wall. Sure. With that grade. Okay, we got to get a quarterback. You can put the quarterback at that. They all got the same grade, so theoretically you can pick and choose, what you want, because they are the same grade. But still, you want to have that discussion of these 4. I'd rather have this guy first, but you never go into a draft making that decision on draft day. Those decisions are always made weeks before. Yeah. Okay. You present yourself with the different hypotheticals and then come up with the answer. And, I've said this before. I don't think I've said it on here, but you got to assume it's going to be the worst case scenario every round. And if you're happy with what the worst case scenario is, you're in good shape. But then it's also, that's going to tell you whether you should get out of the pick. And again, you're doing that before you get to the draft, as you're putting that final board together. Okay, what happens if this guy's gone, this guy's gone, this guy's gone, this guy's gone? This is what I'm looking at. Do I want him? And if you say, no, I don't know if I don't want him there.
Right.
Okay, so then you say, okay, we got to trade out. If we're year we took Greg Olsen, that's the only guy we were looking at that we like. And if Greg Olsen wasn't there, we were getting out. So we had already made the calls. And you're getting, and you don't make the call. You make the calls leading up to the draft.
Right.
Okay. And you never say who you want. You say, hey, we're picking at 26. There's a couple guys we like. If they're not there, we're willing to move out. Just want to let you know, come draft day, if you want to give us a call. You're not making the deal that day. You're just telling them that your pick may be for sale. And then come draft day, phones start ringing because people want that pick. And then, you got to make a decision. The year we went into the draft, the year we took Devin Hester, knowing we were going to trade out of the first round. We made those calls in the week leading up to the draft, and we had 4 teams bidding for that pick. And then it was, okay, what's the best package? And who can we get with these packages? And you're trying to do this in a short period of time.
Yeah.
Figuring it out. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on, but that's where the preparation comes in.
And you ended up with one of the best players in the draft and perhaps the best return man in the history of the NFL, and Devin Hester. Hey, what do you think it would take? Let's say, Nagy and Pace are back. So the decision makers are back with the team, so under what circumstances do you think that those decision makers entertain the idea of bringing Mitch Trubisky back in 2021? Because they can't find another quarterback, because they need a good quarterback, or because perhaps they might still have faith in Mitchell Trubisky? What's your gut feel on that?
My gut feeling is if these guys are both here, say next week, even though, like I said earlier in the show, I think that being that they're still here today, they are going to be here, but who knows what's for sure. First of all, before you can say we're not bringing them back, you got to have a plan on who we're going to bring in. Who's going to be out there? What's it going to cost to get them? Is it going to be Dak Prescott? Hell no.
No way.
Okay, that isn't going to happen. Okay, so who's going to be out there? I've been saying for weeks, I think he gets a short-term contract. And they draft a guy. I don't think they draft a guy in the first round. I think that second round, pretty good probability. Obviously, it depends who's there. Where they're picking last of the 8-8 teams in the first round. Now, I don't know how many 8-8 teams are. I didn't even look. So they're 20th in the first round.
Correct.
They move up to the top of that list in the second round because they're last in the first round. Right. And then they move down. How many teams finished 8-8? You might have that.
1, 2, 3, including the Bears. That's 3 with the Bears.
Okay, so there's 20. They're going to have the 20th pick in the first round. They're going to have the 18th pick in the second round. 19th pick in the third round. 20th pick in the fourth round. Okay, and it'll just keep fluctuating like that through the draft. Okay, so now you got to look at, what quarterbacks are going to be in the second round? Who do we anticipate going in the first round? Like I called the guy today. I go, where do you think that Alabama quarterback goes? He said 2.
Second round or second overall?
No, second round.
Okay. I'm surprised. I've heard a lot of scuttlebutt that he is a potential first rounder.
Well, yeah. And quarterbacks get overdrafted. There's no question quarterbacks get overdrafted.
Exactly.
But I'm going to tell you right now, Justin Fields, there's people, the draft picks got him the number 2 quarterback, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Screw that. People in the league, all over the board. There's some people that might have him as number 2. There's other people that don't even have him in the first round.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can see that.
Okay. So it's, some people think he's very, I think he's mechanical, deliberate. I think when you get to the NFL game, he's going to, panic. You got to use Ohio State's offense as an example. Who coming out of that offense at that position has played good in the NFL? And you look at Haskins as the last guy, and he was a total bust.
Hey,
most of which was his own fault.
I got to get this question because I love this question from Berlissimo. Berlissimo is a guy who studies football left and right, up and down, and he's got this question for you. When evaluating quarterbacks, are you weighing scheme fit or traits? And what do you do to evaluate smarts? Is it tape or how they overcome plays that they've been trapped on, for instance, or you rely more on interviews?
We're spending the rest of the show on this question, right?
Just break it down for us a little bit. I understand. It's a complicated question.
It's a long answer.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'll put it this way, because it's probably the easiest way to put it. First of all, your guys going into the school are asking the coaches, how does he learn, all that other stuff. Now, this year, nobody went into a school. So they had Zoom calls on certain days where coaches would ask questions, but you still, you can't get into it. And some coaches, they don't want to tell a whole group certain things, but let's say you're an assistant coach and I got a good relationship with you. You might tell me more than you're going to tell the crowd because of that relationship that's been built up, over the years. Now, what happens with quarterbacks is the pro day, in my opinion, that's for the media and that's fluff. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean jack shit.
Right.
Now they're going to, the NFL Network and Daniel Jeremiah and Mike Mayock, when he was on there, they're going to say, oh, he was great. And Mel Kiper, he moved up 15 spots off his pro day. Okay. Wrong. Because first of all, pro days are scripted. That guy has been practicing what he's going to do on that pro day for probably 2 weeks with the receivers he's going to have, what throws he's going to have, what order he's going to have those throws. Those workouts are geared to emphasize the strengths of the player. And I'm talking at the quarterback position, not necessarily the other position, at the quarterback position. Because the pro coaches have nothing to do with the pro day workout. It's run by the quarterback guru, who's been coaching that guy, getting ready for the combine and getting ready for workouts. So they're not going to show anything with weak points, and they're going to emphasize the strong points and what he can do, not what he can't do.
Excuse me real quick. I remember Johnny Manziel's pro day. It was telecast on NFL Network, and boy, he looked like the next coming of Johnny United.
Yeah. Throw it out the window. It doesn't mean a thing. Now, private workout, totally different thing. First of all, the pro day, the workout phase of the pro day may last, hour and a half, whatever, depending on how many throws he's got. You going for a private workout? We're talking 6 hours now, maybe more. Okay, you get there in the morning. The first thing you're doing is you're interviewing the guy, and then you're getting him in a classroom and you're getting him on the whiteboard. Mm-hmm. And now you're finding out a little bit, about what he can learn, what he can't learn. Generally, the coordinator or the position coach then will sit down and he'll start installing some of your offense with this guy. And the whole idea that he's going to take notes, and a lot of it's basic stuff, but still you want to see what he can learn and retain and what he can't. And you're asking him questions. Mm-hmm. Okay, you're drawing up the play. You draw up some play. You draw 5 plays. This play, this play, this play, this play. And he's supposed to be taking notes. Now you're going to say, okay, Joe, come on up. Draw them up and explain to me what every guy's got to do. And the sharp guys, they're going to tell you right away, and they're not going to miss a beat. And the guys who aren't quite as sharp, they're going to screw up. Now the next phase, and these classroom part of the workout it's a long time. We're talking a few hours, right? Maybe 3 hours. Mm-hmm. Okay, now take a little break, get something to eat. Now you're going out onto the field and you're doing the physical part of the workout,
right?
And part of it is to see, can he take what I just taught him in the classroom mm-hmm. and carry it out on the field mm-hmm. and do it without having to keep repeating things, and how quick can he retain and take it out of the field and perform. And he does not know, where his pro day, it's a rehearsed event and he knows everything he's going to do from beginning till the end. At a private workout, he doesn't have a freaking clue. Mm. And so the pressure is on him and how he responds and how he throws. He doesn't know what throws he's going to make, when he's going to make them, or who he's going to throw to. Mm-hmm. Some cases he's thrown to his own guys. Excuse me. But it's an entirely different situation. Teams are going to put 1,000 times more stock into what happens then than what happens at the pro day.
Got another question for Bellissimo that I just have to ask you.
I hope that ask him if it answered his question.
All right, George, let me know in the chat room. And then his other question, we were talking about Greg Olsen earlier, and Bellissimo wants to know, what swear words did you use when the Bears, behind Mike Martz's thinking, traded away Greg Olsen and brought in Brandon Manamana?
Well, first of all, Brandon Manamana, you don't know whatever his name was, he was brought in actually before.
Okay.
He was brought in during the offseason.
Right.
The problem was Mike Martz had blinders on, tunnel vision. Okay, he had his system, and he didn't know how to adjust his own system. Mm-hmm. And in his system, and he was, when he originated that system in St. Louis, he was way out of the league. Mm. Well, guess what? It changes, and people catch up and pass him. And that's what they did. He was locked in a time warp somewhere from 10 years before, 12 years before, never made a single change to his system, and thinking that was going to work when he was here with the Bears. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't. So part of that system was the tight end wasn't a receiver. The tight end was a blocker. Thus, you had Brandon Alphabet. Mm-hmm. Okay, he was 300 plus pounds and being used as a third tackle and not a receiver. Well, that was really at the beginning of the time when the tight ends were starting to become a big factor,
right,
in the NFL. Mike Martz didn't know how to adjust to that. And so
he wanted to accommodate for the fact that he loved to call 7-step drop plays and have his quarterback weight back down there, and that's why he wanted that other tackle,
right?
Brandon Manamulula.
So he had no use for Greg Olsen because Greg Olsen wasn't a fit, and then he cries to Lovey, and then Lovey cries to Jerry, and it's like and Jerry will tell you to this day that's the worst thing he ever did as GM with the Bears. He never wanted to do it. He got pushed into a corner and ended up having to accommodate. And then he only gets a 3rd-round pick. And, and I talked to Marty Hurney after, and he goes, I knew they were backed into the corner.
By the way, Berlissimo says that when you were talking about Mike Martz, it sounded a lot like you were talking about Matt Nagy. They seem to be pretty similar in their stubbornness. So, by the way, this just out on Twitter, it is trending that Mike Garofalo of the NFL Network is that everyone at Hallis Hall right now is on edge, and that it appears like nobody's job is safe yet. Not to say that anyone is going to be fired, but the fact that they're still conversing about things has everyone at Hallis Hall on edge. What do you think about that from Mike Garofalo, the NFL Network?
Well, again, and I could be totally off base and throwing a dart at the wall here. My experience is, now, I'll back up a little bit. The only difference from my experience then today is that we got a pandemic and when you can be in the building and not be in the building. Mm-hmm. So conversations, etc. So your so-called year-end meeting between ownership and Ted Phillips and the decision makers on the football side, that might not have taken place yet. But, again, using my experience, I would have thought that first, I would have think that if they were going to make a move, that decision already would have been made, going into the weekend.
You would think, right?
Yeah. I don't know. These insiders, and he's pretty good, but at the same time, they're guessing too, and they might be, have a contact or two in the building, a coach or so in the building, and what's going on, and the coach, I don't know, we haven't heard anything, mm-hmm. And so that's where you get a report like that. But at the same time, I'm thinking if they were going to do it, it would have been done. Like I said, we could end the show in 5 minutes, and an hour from now, you could get the word, okay, so-and-so's been fired.
That's right. I'd be calling you back and saying, hey, Greg, we need to update the show.
But I think, my own personal opinion is those two are going to be here, mm-hmm. and there will be changes to the coaching staff. Mm-hmm. That's my gut feeling. I don't know if I'm right or wrong. I'm using my experience.
Sure. Well, use your experience to answer this question from Toa Hang. He says, Greg, do you think that Mitchell Trubisky could develop into a Ryan Tannehill or even Josh Allen level quarterback? I find these quarterbacks to be the best comparisons in the league to Mitch's potential.
I'm not putting Josh Allen in that sentence. Josh Allen, what he has done is absolutely amazing. Mm-hmm. And part of it is Josh Allen. Mm-hmm. And you've heard me talk about football character. Josh Allen's football character is off the charts. I mean, out of the room. Mm-hmm. He wants to be good so bad, wants to be great so bad. He will do anything. And the day the season's over, he never took off. He went to his private coach, and they started working on mechanics and over. He changed his mechanics some, and part of the things he was doing in his workouts was throwing in the sand because, to try to strengthen his base and his throwing base. Mm-hmm. And, you'd never have a good base when you're running around in sand. And so that was one of the things. But to do, the old adage is if you don't have accuracy in college, it's not going to carry over to the NFL. And you could go through, go back since I started doing this in 1981, 95% of the time that holds true. Very few times have you seen a guy who's been inaccurate in college become an accurate passer in the pros. He jumped 10 points this year. That's incredible.
Amazing.
And his deep ball, unbelievable. But he, and I've tweeted it, and I've watched all their games because I'm a Bills fan. Grew up there. Mm-hmm. My kids go to the game. My son-in-law, I think, was at the game on Saturday. This guy comes up to the line of scrimmage. He's in charge. There's no deer in the headlights. He sees things. He know who he is to me? He's young Aaron Rodgers with a better arm. He's got the best. They say Patrick Mahomes got a great arm. I'd love to see a velocity contest between
Wow.
the two of them. I know Josh Allen can throw the ball more than 100 yards. And
That
he
would-
can. And now, what Mahomes can do is he can make those off-angle throws. But now you're starting to see Allen do that too. But so Tannehill would be, a better comp to use than Josh Allen. But still, it's Tannehill was a bust in Miami, and he gets to Tennessee, and now he's become a hell of a player. Is that the coach he's working with in Tennessee? Is it him or a combination of the two? Probably a combination of the two.
And throw in Derrick Henry into that mix.
Well, yeah, that helps, but some of it's got to be Mitchell, and we don't know what he does on the offseason, who he works with, who he doesn't work with. Obviously, when you get here, when the offseason program starts, that's one thing, but you didn't even have that this year. No offseason program at all, except a virtual one. But part of that is doing what Josh Allen did and working with the right person. And in Allen's part, he works with Carson Palmer's brother. But it's getting the mechanics right. And it's also learning to read. Now, he's played in the league 4 years now. If he can't learn to read now, he's never going to learn to read. Yeah, but you got to play to his strengths. And we saw in that last part of the season, when you were playing to his strengths, I threw 70. He was a 73% thrower in those last 4 games.
Yeah, pretty impressive.
Yeah. So, who is he? And that's why I think, you try to get it done for 2 years. I mean, he was pretty confident yesterday in his exit interview. He said, I think I'm going to be back. But of course he's going to say that. But there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So could there have already been talks? We don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I doubt it very much, but we will soon find out. I got another question here, and we'll probably take another one or two and then wrap things up. This is a hot topic, among all Bears fans. It's about the offensive line. A lot of people are saying you got to fix the offensive line first before you even think about what the quarterback situation should look like. And so Herney 777 says, how many years does it take to fix the offensive line? So give me your evaluation as to how this offensive line is now and what needs fixing and how long will it potentially take to improve?
Well, I think through all this mess we had this year, they found some players.
Yeah.
Okay. So one is Sam Mustipher. And people like Olin, who I respect, and he knows the center position. He thinks Sam can be a guy who's there, a fixture at the position for a while. Alex Barr's a pretty good player. And I was looking at Alex, and I stood right next to him. Notre Dame played at Northwestern a few years ago. So it was Barr's last year, but he is already hurt. So, he tore his ACL. So he's there. I always, during warm-ups, you go down on the field, and I always watch the offensive and defensive line warm up because I want to see their movement, see their body shape, that type of thing. But, being Barrs was a senior, I stood literally right next to him. And he was probably 305 pounds, give or take. And, tall, has some good length. Well, I watched them coming out of the tunnel on Sunday, and then they have the camera on him. He's huge right now. I guarantee he's 320, 325. His arms are like this, and they weren't like that when he was at Notre Dame. And he's big in his legs. And one of his problems when he was at Notre Dame is he wasn't real strong in his lower body. And because of that, when he made contact with people, his legs might give out at times. You don't see that now. So he's gotten stronger in the right place. He's always been athletic. He was a tackle when he came, in high school. I think they recruited him to play tackle and then had the need inside and moved him inside. Could he eventually be a tackle? No, he's played some tackle in the preseason a year ago and wasn't too bad. That may be a case, but, who knows? Because most of his playing time has been as a guard. 95% has been as a guard, not as a tackle. Daniels, who Olin thinks is the best offensive lineman they have, he missed, 3/4 of the season?
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. So he's back. So now you've got 4 guys inside for 3 positions. And Barge, he's played some center. And so you got guys, you're set. So now it's the tackle position. Okay. I don't think Ifedi played that bad when they moved him outside. Okay. And I was wondering, I'm watching Seattle get eaten up in the playoff game the other day. What did they sack Russell Wilson, like 6 or 7 times?
It was 6, yeah.
Yeah. Well, they didn't want to re-sign Ifedi. Ifedi wasn't a freaking revolving door like they had over the weekend. Ifedi, he may be, a guy you're going to get by with. That's going to be up to Juan Castillo. I think Juan's done a hell of a job.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. When you look at what, but I think you got obviously it's got to fall that way and how you got your board lined up. But I would go into the draft wanting to take a tackle.
Mm-hmm.
And, you're going to earmark some guys. You're picking at 20. Generally, it didn't happen last year. Generally speaking, you're going to have 3 or 4 tackles off the board by 15. So you're going to, at 20, you might be looking at the 4th or 5th tackle.
Mm-hmm.
So now you got to look at your board and say, okay, is it worthwhile taking your 4th or 5th tackle at that position? Because is he a guy who can come in and start for you? Okay, and then in the second round, I'm hoping that I get a quarterback.
Jim Nagy was on one of our shows, Draft on Tap, with Danny Shimon and Neil Stopchinski. And Nagy, the executive director of the Senior Bowl, said that he thinks that the offensive line position and tackle position is the deepest that he has seen in the last few years. So that's good news for the Chicago Bears. Final question before we pull the.
Well, there's one guy, and I got to really study him up close.
Sure.
There's a guy I like, and at that area. Now, having not studied, and I will, all the tackles and rank them, say the first 10, 12, something like that, is Liam Eichenberg at Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. 3-year starter at left tackle. I think he's a pretty damn good player.
Yep.
Okay. Now, I've seen some draft nicks that got him ranked 223 or something like that. Mm-hmm. They're out of their fucking mind. Notre Dame had one of the best offensive lines in football, and the right side of their offensive line, as far as pro prospects, was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Hainsey is a straight-legged player who, from the waist down, has got nothing because he's got a small ass, and then his calves are like mine. After I had Achilles surgery, they're like this big, and he's a straight leg player. He got no bend. Yeah. Could he get drafted in the 6th or 7th round? Yeah, he could, but to me, he's a free agent. Mm-hmm. And the other guy, Kramer, at the right guard, he might not even be a free agent, but this year, because a lot of people didn't even play, the small schools, he might get drafted later. He's a free agent, but as far as I'm concerned, neither one of those guys can play at the NFL level. But the left guard and the left tackle, Banks is the left guard. And I know some people really like Banks, the left guard. Mm-hmm. And Eichenberg, 3-year starter, and they got a history of putting good guys into the league. But you just watch his play. He's a very, very solid left tackle who can come in and play left tackle in the National Football League.
We have the highest amount of live viewers for this show, Greg, and they
just send me a check.
Yeah, that's right. They want more and more information from you. I'm going to leave you with just these last two questions. One is, what happened to
You
Eddie
said
Jackson?
2 questions about 4 questions.
I always do that to you, right?
You always do. You're a frickin' cheat.
You're right about that. What do you do about Eddie Jackson? How do you get him back to that 2018 season where he was a ball hawk turnover machine? Or was that just an anomaly?
No, it wasn't an anomaly.
Okay.
I think part of it is scheme. A little different scheme. That was Vic Fangio's scheme where he was great.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we talked about this a few weeks ago. And he had Adrian Amos next to him. Maybe the mistake was not giving Adrian Amos some money and bringing him back.
I'm with you.
Maybe they misevaluated that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then we've talked about it before too. He had 2 pick sixes that got called back on.
Mm-hmm.
That changes the equation too. So the one thing that showed up this year is that he's not a great tackler. But my opinion, he's never been a great tackler. He's more of a he's not a banger. He's a grab.
I've been reading your draft guides for years, and so I think I'm starting to think like you, because everything that you're saying is like, yeah.
Adrian Amos was the banger. Okay, and you haven't had a banger back there with him.
Yeah.
Deshaun Gibson, better than HaHa was as far as run support and tackling. I think there's been some plays this year where I thought Eddie actually tackled better, but this last part of the season, he had misses. And part of that's the angle that you take to ball carrier, receiver, or whatever. And part of it is you got to wrap up. It's not hit the guy with my body. It's hit and wrap.
Right.
It's basic football 101. You hit and wrap, you get the guy down.
And so that leads to my final question. Chuck Pagano, his head is firmly on the chopping block. I can't see him coming back. He's a great guy. He's a fighter. He's a lovable guy. But I think the game has passed him up a bit. What are your thoughts on Chuck Pagano?
I don't want to say the game's passed him up.
I hear you.
The guy's a good football coach. I don't necessarily agree with some of his schemes, his coverage schemes.
Mm-hmm.
And, I said it, excuse me. I tweeted it earlier in the game. I thought they were blitzing more earlier in the game than they have all year.
It did, yeah.
Okay, and well, they weren't getting sacks. You were getting some off-target throws.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting Drew Brees backed up.
Mm-hmm.
Greg Blosh would say they're doing their job.
Yeah,
because Greg Blosh was always a guy. Sacks aren't that important. I disagree with that. I love Greg Blosh. Absolutely love the guy. But it's more about getting the pressure. Mm-hmm. Causing the bad throw. The bad throw could turn into could become a turnover, that type of thing. I thought you were getting some of that early. It didn't continue, but the pressure I thought for most of the game was some of that stuff was just that there was one pass where I don't know how the hell he completed it. It's just a great effort by Drew Brees.
Yeah. He's got that magic touch and all that experience. It'll be a sad day when
I guarantee if you would have hit him in the ribs one time, he would have been done.
I hear you.
He wasn't about to let that happen.
Yeah, it's too bad they didn't decide to just take a cheap shot.
No, I'm not for that. But I know what you're saying. I just
a fraction of a second late. Just let them know that we know you got some bad ribs, cracked ribs, right? They were cracked this season. Well, Greg, this has been outstanding talking to you about the Chicago Bears all season. I think we're going to continue to do so through the next several months. You and I have to talk about our future schedule, but I've just been so happy partnering with you on this endeavor. It's been a great blast. And so let's talk about what our schedule is going to be like in the off season. And I wish you a speedy recovery with your knee and all the rehabilitation that you're doing. And have a great time being under tomorrow. Do you wake up and then go have a glass of wine?
Okay, what they're doing, they're gonna, now this is gonna sound gross. Okay, they are gonna manipulate my knee because I only can bend it so far. Now, I can bend it about 110 degrees. They want it past 120. So what they're gonna do, I gotta find something here.
Okay,
bear with me. No, I got nothing I can break. But
I can find something on YouTube or something.
no, but they're going to take they put you out like, it's a general anesthetic, even though the procedure takes 5 minutes. And they're going to take my leg and they're just going to go.
Oh!
And yes. And, where I only can bend it so far, and there's scar tissue preventing me from bending it any further. But if you try to tear that while you're awake, it's like, somebody stabbing you slowly a number of times. They put you out, and he's just going to do it himself. You just tear all that scar tissue, and it's done. And then you're going to wake up, you're going to have a sore knee. And but the interesting thing is I got to go, like the procedure's like, 8:00 in the morning. Mm-hmm. I got to be at physical therapy around 2 because they want me going to physical therapy for like the next 10 days.
Oh, wow.
Every day, just because they don't want the scar tissue to build back up.
Yes.
So they just keep pushing on and pushing. If you keep moving the joint, then the scar tissue won't have a chance to build back up, and so that's what it's all about. It's just pain in the ass thing more than anything else.
Well, good luck with that. And somebody in the chat room wants to know: is it whiskey that you drink after an event like that? Where they what is it that you or
they give you some good opioid drugs, but I don't like those personally.
Yeah, really. So. Mule Skinner says just to pour some whiskey on your knee and you'll be fine.
No, I'd rather drink straight bourbon.
Oh, now you're talking. Well, I'll be drinking some of that when I do the Dan and Aldo Bear Their Soul show tonight. So catch us here on our YouTube channel about 8:15 Central. Greg, I hope to see you next week as we will continue.
Well, here's the thing to watch for before we get off is that what's the date today? The 12th?
Today is the 12th, correct.
Okay, so the 15th, if it's a normal date, that's the last day for guys to declare. Mm-hmm. So that's Friday. Mm-hmm. The league then won't come out with those names. Guys that have already signed with agents, we know who they are.
Right.
Some of those guys have declared, but the league still gives guys, especially guys who haven't signed with an agent, 3 days to change their mind after the 15th. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to say Monday or Tuesday next week, we're going to get the names of the underclassmen who are in the draft. And that's because there's so many underclassmen in every year. The last few years has been over 100 each year. Mm-hmm. That makes or breaks the draft.
Absolutely.
Who's going to be in, who isn't in. And then it's, okay, now it's time to get serious. Mm-hmm. As far as who's going to be there, who you're, Bears are picking 20. So who's your top 20? And I can tell you right now, Team A's top 20 is going to be different than Team B's top 20, and it's going to be different than Team C's top 20. They're all different. No two boards are alike.
Yeah. Well, and we'll work towards getting your board after you take a look at who's available and then do your research and stuff. It's always fascinating to hear your take on stuff. You did such a tremendous job for what was it, 6, 7, 8 years over at Pro Football Weekly, writing their draft?
6 years I did that, but I would write up 300 guys. And then, we had online guys I didn't have in the magazine. There's guys I wrote up after the fact because, we had a deadline like February 1st. Mm-hmm. And there's, names that come out late, so all those guys I would write up starting from the combine on right up until around the beginning of April, and they'd be available online. But I'm not doing that anymore. Plus, I may be going back to work next month with the XFL, whatever the time frame is.
Mhm.
But at positions in need, I'll do the quarterbacks, I'll do the tackles, the safeties. I think they got to get another inside linebacker, the depth at inside linebacker. Manti Te'o actually played pretty decent football the other day.
Not bad. Yeah, he looked confused in a couple of plays, but overall he did well.
But he's not what you want. Not the way the game has gone is the guys who are really good are the Roquan Smiths, the guy on they're smaller guys that can run like hell, they can cover, and they can stop the run. Okay, Manti Te'o, he's going to be a negative in the pass game. He can be okay in zone, but you get him locked in a man thing, even in some short areas. He just doesn't have that suddenness and that burst that you want. But given what he had to do, you got to give him a passing grade.
Absolutely. And for them to have confidence to insert him in over Joel Iyiegbuniwe, who has been with the team for now 3 years, speaks a lot to their assessment of Iggy's future with the team at that.
I think what he is, and that tells you right there, at least with this staff, with this defensive staff, he's a special teamer. And Woods just isn't instinctive enough. So I think you've got to get some depth at that position at some point in the draft.
Hey, a quick question before you leave. I did it again. Do the Bears win the game? Because I think they do. If Roquan is playing, if Darnell Mooney is playing, and Jalen Johnson is playing, do they win the game?
That shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Yeah, I know, but
I think it's a different game. But I'm going to say this: Kendall Vildor is going to be a pretty good player in this league.
I think so too. Yeah.
Okay, and I think that's a guy who basically, Georgia Southern moved up, but that's more FCS than FBS level football. They're playing MAC and worse type teams. I think you're going to see a big jump from him next year, and I really liked his tape last year when he was coming out. And he's got length. He's only about 5'11", 5'10 and a half, but he's got real long arms for a guy that short. So that makes him another inch and a half taller, and he's a physical guy. So now it's just most rookies make their biggest jump in year 2. This year, this poor guy, he never steps down the field until the regular season.
Yeah, right.
So not having that killed those down the road guys. We're going to have a regular training camp next year. That's going to happen because you've got a vaccine. It's getting that damn thing out. But that's 9 months from now, and that's going to be a different story.
I got to tell you, when I interviewed Kendall Vildor at last January's Senior Bowl, and I thought he was undersized. Just standing next to him, I was kind of looking down at him, and I'm 6 foot tall. So, but then that very same day after the interview, a couple hours later, I went over to the field and kept focused on him because I did the interview. So I wanted some B-roll video to match the interview. And boy, I was impressed with his coverage. I was like, holy cow, this kid works hard. And I did notice those long arms in play. He's a prospect to keep an eye on. And then recently we asked Nagy about Kendall Vildor, and he said, I'm convinced he's going to be a starting NFL cornerback in this league. So
I think he just needs playtime. And he get it in the preseason. And so he got that playtime now. I think you're going to see a huge jump from that guy. So then you're going to have Jalen Johnson, Kendall Vildor, and Fuller, 3 guys. Now you got to, in my opinion, you got to have 4, and being that Buster missed the last 4 weeks now after that concussion.
Yeah, 4 or 5. Yeah,
he may be done.
Yeah.
To take that long to come back, that's scary. So he may be done. I mean, he may have to be done on his own mind, because if he misses that much time after concussion and he can't get out of concussion protocol, there's something serious going on there.
Yeah.
And Duke Shelley actually stepped up a little bit, made some plays.
Started to play well,
but he's too little.
Yeah.
He's too little. So you got to get somebody else. And it might be, the one guy, I think he's from Indiana State or Illinois State that they had, and he got hurt in the preseason, tore an ACL, and he was an all-star up in Canada.
Oh yeah. Trey Roberson, is it?
Might be. That might be your fourth guy that you can put into that mix, because he played really well up in Canada.
Yeah. It's going to be an incredibly important offseason for the Chicago Bears, because they've got to hit with their draft picks and they've got to hit with undrafted free agents too, because of where they are at.
Well, it's going to be, what do they do in free agency? And there's going to be guys on this team. There's going to be guys gone that surprise you. You're going to get Eddie Goldman back. So that's a plus. I mean, that was a huge loss. So you're going to get him back. You get Moody back, and Moody's going to have an off season to get a little bigger and stronger. You already know he's going to be a player. The same thing with Kmet. I think that Graham's going to be back another year.
Really?
Yeah. Well, he had a 2-year contract.
That's correct.
Okay. Did his play drop off during the year? Not really.
He made one of the best catches of the year.
He had two one-handed catches this season. In the last one, I mean, that was like Deion Sanders at the combine. Okay, I run my 40 right up the tunnel. And at the combine, that's what that was. He got that touchdown pass and right up the tunnel.
Outstanding. All right, Greg, I will let you go. And I want to tell people that Dan and Aldo Bear Their Souls will be here at 8:15 Central tonight. And thank you all for paying attention to this little show. Greg Gabriel is a superstar, rock star. And we will be back soon. All right, everybody. Bye-bye.
Talk to you later.